Where is the wise man? Where is the scholar? Where is the philosopher of this age? Get down! Baltimore!
What are they giving?
Everything out of me. They gonna get a Super Bowl out of me. Need that. Need that.
All right, welcome on back to another edition of the Baltimore Beatdown podcast. It is Tuesday night, February 15th, 2022. You might be listening to this the following Wednesday morning. My name is Jake Luke. Joined on my screen here. I guess we can do a little bit of a post-Super Bowl pod, a little bit of a mailbag situation going to be going on. We got a lot going on here. Not a whole lot of Ravens news to really touch on, but we do have some things that we are going to be hitting on in today's show. I'm joined on my screen by Spencer Nathaniel Schultz and by Vasilis Lurikos. How's it going, pal? Pals with a Z.
We got the Greek Freak, baby.
That's it. That's it. Doing fantastic. Great to see you guys. It's been too long. Post Super Bowl, it's a great time of year to start digging into some off-season speculation, in my view.
Certainly, it's time to hit the rumor mill, hit the free agent talk, the draft talk, all of it. This is the fun part of the year to me, and we can really just word vomit and have fun and say ridiculous stuff, and it's just no pressure. We're in a vacuum. We're pressure free. Get to get all our takes out and get all that fun stuff going. So it's gonna be a fun one. I can feel it. We needed you, Vaz. We needed you for this episode.
I'm here for you.
Yeah, it kind of feels like we've talked about doing the reset type pods where the stress is cleared, the cobwebs are cleared a little bit. But yeah, and then you got to get the auditor in here, as Tony is saying. Voss is coming and spend all the money. Yeah, I have a feeling that you're going to have some ideas in that regard, as we alluded to before we got going here. But how's everything else going with you, pal?
I'm good, man. Just celebrated a birthday yesterday, Valentine's baby. So it's been good to me over the years. It continues to be, and I just really think now's the time to talk a little philosophy, a little roster building philosophy, a little team building philosophy. And I really have a big question, a big brain question for you guys. Do the Ravens take too much of a long-term strategy building the roster? Because I think in pretty much every single decision they make, whether it's draft, free agency, or whatever, it's focused on long-term and long-term stability. And we just saw a very short-term oriented team, hoist a Lombardi, and it seems that that's the direction the league's going in.
Definitely, and that's why I think Sashi Brown's an interesting hire, coming from the NBA and understanding the way that contract language can help in that regard and maybe get a little more creative on that front. But to me, I think that, and again, so many of these things, I think it really goes up to Steve Bisciotti. And I think that they have a little PTSD from when they were hitting the all-in hammer as hard as they could, ringing the bell. Let's get everybody. Let's bring in as much talent as we can. They bring in Anquan Bolden. They're wheeling and dealing across their offensive line, getting all kinds of different guys. And then they didn't really think about Joe Flacco's situation beyond throwing him the bag and figuring it out later. So it feels like they are scorned from the fact that they ended up in like that 3-year rebuild where they couldn't buy the postseason. And I think that they're a little scared of irrelevancy and not being one of those 6 or 7 franchises, the Seahawks, the Packers, the Steelers, the Broncos at times, Colts, whatever it was, or Patriots, these teams that have kind of perennially been in the dance and been successful and been winning and had that air of like having a winning organization. So I think there's a little just trepidation of missing when they swing in a way. And I think that, Earl Thomas probably also gives them a little PTSD. But not everybody's going to do that. Earl Thomas is an outlier, not a norm. Not often are, brotherfucker is going to be the situation when you pay someone, $50-60 million. There's not going to be some weird situation like that too often. But yeah, I mean, I think that you make good points, Vaz, a lot of times when you talk, because the Ravens used to be the niche. They used to have their comp pick formula that they liked, and they used to be kind of ahead of the curve. But are they ahead of the curve anymore now? No, it's globalized. Everybody's got these ways of thinking. So it's tough. And I think there's another interesting thing, which is, I mean, the Rams do have an owner that is inordinately wealthy, and they're in a mega market. And for instance, I mean, Mark Davis and the Raiders had to move because they couldn't afford to be there. And I think that's I know Cincy fans get so pissed off because Carson Palmer's still banging on that drum saying Joe Burrow is not going to want to stay there because they can't afford to sustain that kind of bill and foot that kind of bill for a long time there. So I think there's some weird factors in it, but I don't know. I think it's a little PTSD that holds them back from a couple different things, but they are still aggressive. I mean, it's been mainly defensively, and I think that they do very much so subscribe to the ideology of let's buy let's draft an offense and let's buy a defense. And it feels like they've been doing that for like a decade now. So definitely a good way to open our brains up heading into the offseason and get some language out.
Yeah, I think I look at it as like, I don't know if I totally agree, and we've talked about this. I don't know if I totally agree with your premise, and you touched on this a little bit, Spenny. I kind of look at DaCosta as like calculatedly swashbuckling, if that makes sense. Like, he does definitely sort of defer to that stability mindset. Steve Bisciotti builds Aerotech from his garage or whatever the story is, and whatever. We don't have to mythologize about that. I'm sure he had help, but like, he built a business from the ground up, and I think he kind of runs the Ravens that way, and I think that's a good thing in a lot of different respects. But there are times, to your point, where I would like to see them kind of swing the hammer a little bit more, to use your terminology there. But I do think they have made moves like Earl Thomas. And what sucks about the Earl Thomas thing is he was great in 2019. And it sucks that he had to, be an asshole and kind of separate himself from his teammates. And that does raise the bigger discussion you've brought up about Harbaugh's culture and like, what is the value there if he can't rein in guys like that? But I do think that is just like a true, like 1 in 10 outlier. A guy like that just going so off the rails like that, not just with the brother effing, but with the just being a dick to his teammates by the sound of it, and just completely alienating himself and
missing meetings,
starting fights, missing meetings. Like, you can't be doing that stuff in a professional environment. So like, it's a shame they couldn't make that work, but he's a big swing. Marcus Peters is an all-in swing in 2019 that should have netted them more than it netted them that year. And they come out flat and they lose a playoff game. And that's probably part of the reason why we're having this conversation. If they had advanced to even the AFC Championship game that year, which, all they had to do was win that game.
If the Ravens beat the Titans and then lost the next game, everything would be changed about the way everyone thinks about the Ravens.
I have a feeling things might be markedly different, but that's spilt beer at this point, so we don't have to like go too crazy about that. 2020, they go. I mean, Calais Campbell, kind of an all-in move. They didn't have to give up a ton. They didn't have to compensate him a ton.
They had to pay him a lot, though. He was one of the most highly paid interior defensive linemen in the NFL. I think top 5.
15 mil a year. 15 mil a year.
I see that as a pretty all-in move. 5th round pick, but they did pay him a lot. And then Yannick Ngakoue, the same thing. Like, it kind of felt like an all-in move to me as well. I mean, and then, they're sniffing around at Xavier Howard. I'm kind of glad they didn't do that, because they wouldn't have gone anywhere with him anyway. People were kind of, sniffing around Odell Beckham a little bit within the fan base. That's another move that I would have liked, but it would have not really mattered much ultimately in the grand scheme of things. So I think this year is maybe a good example to me almost of like, just feel it out. Like, feel out when is a good time to go all in and take some swings. And I think they've had sort of a good feeling for when to do so with 2019. 2020 is a little bit more of a mixed bag. Yet Ngakoue didn't give them much. And then this year they kind of, I don't know if I'd say they had a feeling that they weren't going to go anywhere, but they didn't make a move, which is maybe a tacit acknowledgement that they did think that way. And then that wound up bearing fruit with Jackson missing games down the stretch, and then they missed the playoffs. So I think I don't totally agree with your premise 100%, but I do think you make some valid points in that regard. I would like to see them be a little bit more aggressive. Is this going to be the offseason to do it? I guess we'll see.
So good points all around, and I definitely understand what you guys are saying. Specifically to what Spenny said, certainly the Rams are a different market, a different, financial backing. As far as the PTSD, I take a little bit of issue with that, and I'm a little bit older than you guys. I remember after the first Super Bowl, Ozzie kept the entire team together. And mind you, that team had a lot of mercenaries, a lot of players that were not drafted by the Ravens. Rod Woodson, Shannon Sharp, Siragusa, McCrary, Sam Adams. I mean, the list goes on and on. He kept it together, and then they had to blow it up, and they cut 7 starters, and they rebounded pretty quickly. After the 2012 Super Bowl, he said he didn't want to do that. He traded Bolden, and then he took Bolden's money and spread it across Marcus Spears and Michael Huff and a bunch of other guys. Interestingly, the Ravens had a better record in the 3 years following the salary cap purge in 2002 than they did in the 3 years following the continuity model in 2012. So this notion that the Ravens way, first of all, it hasn't always been the Ravens way. And second of all, it hasn't always paid dividends. I just think they don't have to do everything like the Rams. The Rams are an extreme outlier. But if you value BPA in the draft and you value devalued positions in the draft and you value cap conservatism and you want a deep roster and you also do comp picks and you signed third contract veterans, every single one of those moves is really to raise the floor, and none of those moves are to raise the ceiling. They don't build a top-heavy roster with the stars that a lot of the national pundits like Robert Mays and Mike Tice are saying on their podcast. Those are the players that they're the postseason kind of players. So you need those stars at the end. So just with everything that they're doing, and now that you add in the factor that Kansas City is going all in, the Saints went all in and still won more games than the Ravens this year with their 2 highest paid players on injury reserve for most of the year. I don't think that falling off a cliff is really likely, to be honest. The doomsday scenario is not that likely. You also have Josh Allen. You also have Burrow, you have Herbert, you have some really good quarterbacks in the AFC, and the model of contend every season, just get in the playoffs, even if our team's a little bit weak, and we know they're weak, but we're still going to spend all the way to the cap on replacement level players to give us a chance. I think long-term that ends up hurting them. And I do think this is time to maybe pivot the strategy a little bit. You can't stay in one mindset forever and think it's always going to work. Nothing lasts forever.
I think
definitely, and I think they have loaded up on draft picks the last couple of years. But you mentioned these other quarterbacks. I just think there is, and they've been tight. I mean, Earl Thomas, dead money didn't help things at all. You know, had to deal with the Orlando Brown situation, whatever. But they have an opportunity because they're holding Lamar Jackson's contract extension to peak at the right time in terms of how much space they're going to have as the cap is supposed to jump up. Hopefully COVID continues to dwindle and, we're going to be stuck with it in some form for a while, whatever, but hopefully that continues to dwindle. Mahomes and Allen are going to have more substantial cap hits that occupy a higher percentage of their cap space. And the Ravens can then consequently sign Lamar Jackson, have an extremely low cap hit in year 1, and then an average cap hit in year 2 before it balloons up, which feels like it's ultimately going to happen. And at that point, that is when you can completely deck your layout of your gun and, get everything you want, make it as fancy as possible, get the scope, get the handle, get everything on it. And I feel like that is a good time, but it just feels like right now, who is the Aaron Donald? Who are these Jamar Chase? Like, they don't it's Lamar, but no, I mean, Mark Andrews, sure. There's a lot of good tight ends in the NFL. It feels like you can have a great tight end on a bad team very easily. And
that's kind of the point. They need more stars, and they don't.
And what I like about your point, honestly, and like it's interesting because I don't know if I agree with you that I don't know if Casey is like does the all-in thing as much as you say. But what I will say about it is,
seems like Casey's more creative with the way they utilize their cap management.
And they were with the offensive line moves they made. So I'll give you that.
And draft picks. They trade draft. Frank Clark and OBJ. They both traded draft picks.
Sure, yeah, 30, 31, and 32. Which it's not like that's, you can certainly give up picks like that, and the Ravens certainly could as well. And all of this is to say that I kind of agree with you, but like where I agree with you is, I don't think it's like Casey's like strategy and like roster construction that's like getting them to where they are. I think there's one reason they are where they are, maybe two: the coach and the quarterback. And guess what? The coach in Baltimore is maybe as good as the coach in KC. The quarterback is not. Mahomes is on another level than everyone else. So you got to level the playing field for Lamar a little bit. And they've been doing that to some respect. I mean, Andrews is, he might not be better than Kelsey at this point, but he's taken another step from where he was. I think Bateman is going to be very good. Hollywood Brown, I think he's still a very good player and is going to continue to be a good player for this team. And then they've made investments, but they do need to, I think, maybe even get a little bit more around him there to help him out, especially on the offensive line. We've already talked about that, but maybe even more weapons. Like what really blows me is that they missed out on Stephon Diggs. Like that would have been the move, right? I mean, he helped take Josh Allen to another level. And I think a guy like that coming in when he would have come in would have been such a huge help. And
they could have gotten him for, it would have been essentially Patrick Queen for Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, which you do that without even thinking. I do that right now without even
plus the money.
12,
yeah.
But he's like, I think 14 mils. He's not crazy paid.
He's not crazy. Yeah. And then you don't maybe need to draft Bateman in the first round, definitely has some effects.
The big question is, do they overvalue draft picks? Because that's, I think, really what we're talking about here. Will they be willing to trade a draft pick? And let's be frank, they love their draft picks. But the problem is that who they think is BPA doesn't always turn out to be BPA. And I think there's a little bit of hubris there. That could be.
I don't think they've been drafting BPA like that heavily, though. Like
maybe
Queen
not in the
need.
first.
Queen was an absolute need pick. Hollywood Brown
they could have
was a need pick. Bateman, I think, NOA were both to a degree like, they had to draft a freaking edge.
I agree with that.
Bateman feels like it was like, all right, we're a receiver away. We're going to draft the receiver that we like the most at 27.
So I don't pretend that I have all the answers and my notion is infallible, but I do think that I'm just trying to move the Overton window because there's been this prevalence, this stubborn adherence to the Ravens way as the way. And frankly, they won 2 playoff games in 9 years. And it's not.
I think where you get frustrated, sorry to cut you off and you can continue, but like I think where you get frustrated is just people that like blindly say like they know what they're doing, calm down.
Well, and not only that, but what really frustrates me is that when they have a 2017 Ravens team that clearly is a tier below the top teams. And they're like, well, let's just sign a bunch of mediocre players and blow and kill all of our cap space that we could hypothetically carry over to next year so we can contend every season, so we can get into the wild card and see if we get lucky and the ball bounces our way 10 times.
2017.
After 2017?
What did they do the following offseason?
Well, they had a good draft. They had that's really the question.
Turn the engine over at quarterback, which was not an easy thing to do at the time. And
see, this is the thing that I hate about that period, the final Joe Flacco years, though. Too, they should have been 4-12, 5-11, 6-10 those years.
Right?
Yeah, that's an issue.
Like, they were overperforming, and I think again that is like Harbaugh is going to keep you within the realm of the playoffs.
So there's
you're
like
always going to be playing meaningful games.
So number one, that's the reason why you go all in, because even if you have to rebuild it, the UDFA,
so that was their mistake,
and the guys
right?
they've signed, and Harbaugh will lift the floor. They're always going to be a high floor team. Number two, they had one of the best draft class in the history of the NFL in 2018. They got like 6 starters out of that draft, 3 All-Pros, amazing draft class, and they still couldn't get over the hump because of this contend every season mentality.
I mean, but they also signed Earl Thomas.
I think
they
was
traded
great.
for Marcus Peters.
They had won that fucking game in 2019. If they had just beaten the goddamn Titans,
They basically signed 2 All-Pros, drafted. Who was the third? What, they had Lamar, Mark Andrews,
I guess
Orlando Brown.
OBJ,
Orlando Brown's
he's
like
a Pro Bowler. He's a
Orlando
Pro Bowler,
Brown,
not
I'll say, is an
All-Pro.
All-Pro caliber player for sure. So I mean,
Avery,
Bozeman, they did go all in 2018
Bozeman,
and
yeah.
agree. It was just, I guess, 2019. Pardon
But
me.
they didn't have a
2018,
receiver. They didn't have the receiver. They didn't have a receiver. They needed a receiver. If they would have just got that one piece, I would have understood it. So my fear
if they drafted
is,
AJ Brown probably instead of Hollywood or something.
if you're playing with 100% of your resources on a given year, and the other teams follow the Rams model, and you start getting copycats, and other teams are spending 110% or 120% of their resources and mortgaging the future to a little bit, how do you ever catch up? Because health is health. And obviously there's a great deal of luck with that, and there's variance in the playoffs, and there's bounces. But whether you're a top-heavy team or a deep team, we saw this year, if your top guys get hurt, you're out of luck either way. So that's really where I think the league is probably going to go. I've seen several articles about that people are going to copycat the Rams. And if you continue with the stability, is the goal to win the division the most times, or is the goal to win the Super Bowl the most times? Because I think that's probably 2 different strategies.
So the Rams went out and got who? They went out and got Jalen Ramsey. They went out and got Von Miller, and they claimed Odell Beckham on the waivers, which really was like,
they got Whitworth.
I mean,
They got
they did
Whitworth.
sign
They got
Whitworth. They signed Whitworth.
Leonard Floyd.
Floyd.
I mean, that's a lot of guys.
So offensively, they brought in Whitworth.
They got Robert Woods. They
drafted him.
No, they didn't. He was with Buffalo.
Oh, pardon me. They did sign Robert Woods a long time ago. You're right. So I mean, they had Robert Woods, when they were not great. Whatever.
Sony Michel they traded for. I mean, they made some aggressive moves. So
I just feel like the Ravens didn't do that offensively as much, but they did do it defensively. They did go get star players, like 4 in 2 years.
Who's the 4?
Earl Thomas, Calais Campbell, Yannick Ngakoue, and Marcus Peters. And Von Miller is better than any of them, and Jalen Ramsey is better than any of them too. So I think that's the difference between being fuck those picks and let's reasonably do this. Let's use free agency.
That's where the calculatedly swashbuckling term comes from. I think willing to make moves, but like the opportunity cost.
They also traded for Stafford, right? And that's what's actually crazy is everyone's like, oh, well, this is a sidebar, but everyone's like, oh, Stafford had a $20 million salary or cap hit, whatever, this year. They also, how much dead money they have from Goff?
And Gurley.
What?
And Gurley. And they had Goff and Gurley, 2 terrible contracts, and they still massaged the cap and their draft picks in a way to get it done. And that's really why I don't buy into the narrative that if they did say we're going to be more aggressive, that they would have a 5-year downturn. It just doesn't happen. Look at the Bengals. Where were the Bengals 2 years ago?
If you have the quarterback, the league is designed. You're not going to have a downturn.
The league is designed for parity. It's designed for teams to go up and down and up and down and up and down. And to try to stay at 10, 11, 12 wins every year is swimming upstream. And I really think it's counterintuitive. And there's a way to strategically take advantage of that. And this is the team that could do it with their prowess, with the UDFAs, with the late round players. And they could avoid those really down years while still adding a little bit more onto their top end years.
So we've had this conversation a million times offline, and I think it's good that we're having it right now. And I feel like we've sort of come to the inflection point where we don't know what's going to happen this offseason. So what is your idea? What is your plan for this coming offseason?
Me?
Yes.
I think I want to sign a big ticket free safety, whether that's Bates. Probably Bates is going to get away. Marcus Williams probably is going to get away. Or Honey Badger.
I don't know about that with Marcus Williams.
Well, then that's to the point. If New Orleans can leverage the cap for 8 years in a row and they still keep Marcus Williams, I mean,
No. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I thought you were saying you think the Ravens aren't going to get Marcus Williams.
No, I'm saying he's going to get away from New Orleans.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I want the Ravens to sign Marcus Williams. Yes.
Marcus Williams. I think you get a free safety.
I think that's a good starting spot.
And then I think you, instead of signing 5 $3 million guys or $2 million guys, you sign one big ticket.
Like Trent Brown.
Yeah, like I wrote an article before I was even hired to write. It was buckshot or slug. And I don't know if you guys shot shotguns, but the buckshot is, one big bullet in the center, and a slug is one big shot in the center. A buckshot sprays. So you have
shotgun.
Okay. I got a Mossberg 550, but anyway, do you want to spray your cap hit to 6 guys, or say you got $10 million excess, or do you want to sign one $10 million player or one $10 million cap hit? I think you get one of those guys, and then you draft trenches hard, 2 tackles, or 2 offensive tackles, 2 defensive tackles, or maybe a pass rusher and a defensive tackle. That would be my preferred method here of what you do in the offseason in a nutshell. And of course, you could bring back a Justin Houston or a Calais Campbell. I'd do that also. But I think you get a free safety and trench it up.
Good year to do it. Really good year to do that.
I haven't done the true analysis to this, but I very strongly feel that signing free agents on the offensive side of the football, especially to big contracts, does not work out that often. I think that's bad business. I think defensively, there's really, only kind of so many differences between schemes defensively, and you kind of really know what a guy is. There's health involved, but I feel like defense is a little more straightforward. So I like that approach that they have, but I want them to actually do BPA, actually draft 10 plus guys, sign a Marcus Williams, draft the best players that you can find in the draft so that you have talent that is cheap. Go try and get 4 high-end rotational starting caliber impact players, get as many as you can. And then again, I just feel like they're going to make the playoffs next year if they're remotely healthy. Mm-hmm. They're not going to win under what I'm saying. They're not going to go win a Super Bowl. That is when you can then open up the cap and go deck out the roster. I feel like 1 year after this upcoming year is, I thought this year was going to be the year maybe, but, and again, a lot of guys I think we need to temper expectations as well for guys like Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, Marcus Peters, Marlon Humphrey. All these guys are coming off of huge injuries.
Right.
It takes a year, man. They're going to have stiffness. Tyus Bowser, is going to be stiff and not himself immediately. We saw that with Rashad Bateman. He's immediately lessened by his injury. It takes a long time to get back where you were. And I think that's a little where you can get into Odell.
Apologize for the sirens. I'm in the city.
No, you're good. But so I think there's some tempered expectations there. Ronnie Stanley's situation is they're very much at the mercy of that, and they're kind of back hiring linemen because of that. It feels like, and they're put in that position. But this is a good class of draft picks because of COVID. It is a lot of draftable players because so many guys got extra eligibility or didn't play enough games where they were comfortable entering the draft. The Ravens have a shitload of picks for the best draft in recent history to have a shitload of picks. Go sign a Marcus Williams. Go give a 4-year deal to a second contract player that you can create as a bedrock of your defense. You can push the cap hits down the road. Mm-hmm. You can, get a starter here and there if you need. You can fill in just a little bit, but get starting caliber free agents if you're going to find them. Get a Zeitler, get someone like that if you can. I agree, Vaz. At some point, you need to be able to use UDFAs and late round guys to fill holes instead of free agency. Because I do agree, ultimately, the drop off of your, 4th round pick or your 7th round pick or a UDFA to a very mediocre mid-level free agent that costs $4 million instead of $1 million isn't going to be that big, probably. And you should have the coaching staff in place to be able to enhance some of these younger guys. And if you're confident in your coaching staff, you should be able to build those guys up. So
that's where the premium position aspect comes into play, really, to me, because there's certain positions where the drop off between a 4th and 5th round guy and a UDFA is minuscule, and there's certain positions where it's pretty big. So that's really the angle that I refer to quite a bit, because you're not finding corners and tackles.
There are more UDFAs at a lot of those kind of tertiary, like 3rd tier, 4th tier positional value positions that are playing than there are day 3 guys. Anyway,
Absolutely.
As a collective, because there's so many UDFAs. Obviously, the hit rate on a 5th round pick is like, how many guys end up turning into an impact player in each 5th round? 3, 4. In a stocked 5th round, maybe 5 or 6 out of 40 picks.
Right. And then, a Judon comes along every once in a while, but that's, especially at a premium position, that does not happen very often. Those guys get pushed up to the board because all the teams are searching for those guys. They're searching for pass rushers. They're searching for receivers. They're searching for offensive tackles, and they're searching for receivers. And I guess receivers, not as much because it's so deep, as Jake has brought up many times, but nose tackles and running backs and offensive guards, those and middle inside linebackers, those are the ones that fall through the cracks because the teams are pushing up the other ones. So don't take that, be strategic about it. Those are the ones, when you can, you wait on them because they're easier to find. The Ravens have proven it time and time again throughout their history. I don't need to list all the players they found because you guys know them.
I'm also kind of curious, and I'm in favor of signing a name this year, and I think free safety would be a good spot. I think offensive line would be a good spot. Sign him to that long-term deal, make it a little bit less extensive down the line. And I'm curious, when's the last time one of these teams that goes all in actually paid the piper with cap space? It just feels like teams are just pushing it down the line every single year, so you can afford to
That's what I got into last offseason, because the only time you pay the piper is if the NFL stops.
Right. And
you can always sell more picks. There's always going to be the 2027 first round pick. There's always going to be the 2032 first round pick. So you can keep digging yourself out.
Rams with draft picks. The Packers are talking about, we're just going to get the whole band. Right. They have negative space to work with, and they're just going to do it, and it's probably going to work.
This time last year, everyone thought the Rams were going to win 2 games. They managed to franchise Marcus Williams. Michael Thomas didn't play the entire year.
You mean the Saints?
Saints. I'm sorry, Saints. Michael Thomas didn't play the entire year. They were running out Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill, and who was the other one? Simeon.
They didn't really win games without Jameis, though. Jameis was good.
They won 9 games. The Ravens won 8 games. I think
Jameis won. Didn't Jameis win 6 of them?
It's been a minute. I don't recall, but Teron Armstead, their second highest paid player,
doing much. So
their second highest paid player missed more than half the year. Kamara missed time. I mean, people miss time, but if you have, they kept Lattimore, they kept Ramczyk, they kept the core, and I think if you have high-end players at premium positions,
they shut out Tom Brady. I forgot about that.
if you have high-end players at premium positions, it raises the floor and the ceiling at the same time. And to me, that's the Goldilocks. That's the goal, because maybe this isn't your year, but you have them locked up, and then next year you have more space, and then you can build around them. And then the year after that, you still win 9 games because you still have a lockdown corner and pass protectors and the people in the right places to win games.
They also went on a fucking run drafting really good players for 4 straight years.
Mm-hmm.
They drafted in a 4-year period. They drafted Sheldon Rankins, Michael Thomas, Von Bell, David Onyemata, Marshawn Lattimore, Ryan Ramczyk, Marcus Williams, Alvin Kamara, Trey Hendrickson, Marcus Davenport.
Davenport,
Eric
traded
McCoy
up for
and CDJ.
They traded up for Davenport, and I think they gave up a future first, and he's been a bust. And they still leverage.
No, he's very good now. Very good now.
Okay, but he had a slow start.
But he's had 1.5 good years, so he was a bust, so to speak.
So I think the point that we're all agreeing on here is that this idea that if you go all in for 1 year, you overspend 10 million on a player, you're doomed for the next 5 years. It's just not true. It's been proven time and again.
I can't find it, but Sean Payton got asked about it a couple of years ago, and he said something to the effect of well, shoot, just look at the country's national debt. So comparing this to extremely,
it's true though. It's apropos.
System is funny, but like, yeah, you just keep kicking it down the line. It's never gonna it's literally never gonna affect you.
The cap's
And
going to be
I think Adam Jones
270
has a good
million.
point here in the comments. He said, to be honest, I feel like the Ravens and EDC are kind of lying a little. I think they will, if they want to get a star, they will, or if they really want to pay someone, they will. And that's why, like, Ngakoue was a funny situation. They were sniffing around him for years. And that's why now everybody's like Honey Badger, because they keep sniffing around these certain guys. And people think Ngakoue didn't work out, whatever. I disagree with that. But, you know, it's difficult. And so I know we're all sick of hearing that they almost traded for DeAndre Hopkins and stuff like that. But, you know, that's what I always like to say. EDC makes every call. He makes every call, assesses the value. He knows what it's going to take. He's in every conversation. If there's one thing he's not, I know some people are like getting sour on him, but if there's one thing he's not, is lazy.
I appreciate you guys indulging this conversation. I don't have a whole lot more to say on it. I just think that it's just a fallacy that they can't do this or they can't do that.
Exactly.
They can do whatever TF they want.
If you want a player, you can make it work.
You can make anything. If you want 3 players, you can make 3 players work. If you want to trade anything, and this whole notion that this is the Ravens way and that's infallible, the playoff results just don't support that anymore. So I support
you think it's
anyone
time to
that
shake it
thinks,
up ultimately. And
Right.
Prospects Providence says, then why did EDC blame the cap when they couldn't get a player at the deadline? I think it was kind of like them saying, hey, maybe we shouldn't be buyers right now, considering where we are. Maybe we'd be a little better served to push that 6 months down the road into getting more play for our pay. And he didn't want to come out and say, yeah, we stink.
Because they spent most of it on replacement players that they didn't necessarily have to do. They entered the season with a decent amount of cap, and they could have made moves. They could have extended Peters at that point. They could have restructured Humphrey. They could have done several things. They chose not to, which is good. I just wish they would have chose not to do that 2 months before, when they could have rolled a little bit of cap over to this year. But it is what it is. But it's so fungible, and so many of these teams with void years and all the gymnastics they're showing, they've proven that it can be done.
Certainly, and contract language and, you know, bonus money and conversions and restructures and all that good stuff. Definitely. But I think, I don't know, I feel like the tree is getting shaken up. I think the Wink firing was a pretty heavy, like, indicator that Harbaugh is not pleased and that they want to turn over and do some different things ultimately. And the offense was humming, man. Defense was terrible. The offense was humming. The offense was in a good place while missing some pretty heavy hitters. And I don't know. I think the entire notion that the Ravens have been frugal is completely because of last free agency period, when there really wasn't this like great free agent class, so to speak. And they also did some of their shopping ahead of time with guys like Calais Campbell and things, and I don't know. And I think that's why people are uncomfortable, because they wanted to see a move at the deadline, because EDC has treated the trade deadline as his, you know, bargain bin free agent, give up a 5th round pick to go get, you know, to take that guy off the market and then work a contract extension out or something. So I don't know. I think it's gotten a little hyperbolic about how frugal they are. I don't think they're, you know, some crazy penny pinchers, but
they spend out the cap every year. The question is, what are they spending it on? Are they spending it on stars that are going to win you playoff games? Or are they spending it on backup nose tackles and blocking tight ends and special teams guys?
And that's why I think this draft class can be a nice, thick class. Go get yourself 4 or 5 guys that can help out in the next, you know, 2-3 years. And that way you can really go say what takes us over the top.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm excited for this draft class. And then from this point forward, I mean, go trade a 1st round pick next year. Go find the dude. Go find, you know, trade a 2nd and a 3rd if you need to go find that cherry on top that will be making plays in playoff games that the other team can't stop, regardless of what the scheme is, regardless of all these things we want to do. You know, how many guys at this point, major guys, are eventually it comes down to Jerry's and Joe's, not X's and O's. And with how kind of common the schemes in the league are getting again, I feel like it's kind of mushing into that McVay, Shanahan, you know, there's that whole faction of that. So it's time to go get some dudes.
Three out of four. 3 out of 4 of the conference champion teams were from that tree. So
Right, the wide zone tree.
Yep.
So go get guys that can bust that up. And, the offense is a whole other discussion and whatever, but they were performing at a high level and need to obviously, make Lamar feel good about his protection, about his weapons, all that good stuff. But I just feel like a nice thick draft class, find a star if you can get one in free agency and that's what, again, I'm just going to keep coming back to Marcus Williams because I think he is a very good player. He's been very consistent. He is young. He doesn't have an injury history. I'll knock on wood for him there. And he's, someone you could sign to a 4 or 5 year contract, push the money so that when the cap is up, it's not going to be as big of a deal. And then go launch a 2nd round pick or a 4th round pick or whatever it is when you need to next year. They've been how many draft picks have they had? I mean, in the last 4 years, it's about time to go make a move, an Anquan Bolden type move or something of the sort.
Well, DeCosta said that I forget, but at his presser, what was that last week, that they were eclipsed by another team for having the most draft picks at the very end of the last draft, or the average draft picks over the last 4 years or something like that, which just shows his mindset. He just wants to accumulate. And I get that, but how about maybe more early picks and then more late picks? And I think there's a better way to do it.
Well, he also said last year that he was quite insulted at people's thoughts on his receiving core. So we don't have to totally buy in.
They've averaged 9.5 drafted players from 2018 through 2021.
Right. And
somebody before that, 2016, 2015.
Second most in the league. Second most in the league.
Guys.
And what is it? And what is that really getting them once it becomes crunch time in the season? It's probably not working as intended.
They've drafted some nice rotational guys in the latter rounds, but or whatever. But and it kind of feels like they're on. It kind of feels like they're on. They're kind of due to hit on a monster 5th round pick at this point.
It's because just the comp pick thing. The comp pick thing is great, but they revolutionized it, and then everyone else caught up. And literally, we're talking about 20 years ago. That is a different sport than we're talking about.
It is 100% a different sport.
And off the field,
and players don't fall to them like they used to. The players used to fall.
The globalization of the sport and of the draft process and of just social media and the amount of consumption, how much smarter people can become, and how much quicker you can pick up on trends and data and things of that nature. It has closed the gap in many respects outside of football, in the business world, in academia, in all kinds of stuff.
It's time for version 4.0 of roster construction.
I've got Davon Johnson here. He says, "Stop, Spenny. The draft is a crapshoot." That's why I'm saying they're due to have a home run 5th round pick, because it is a crapshoot. And eventually, you're on a cold run there. You get your Proches and your Broderick Washingtons and, a couple nice, rotational guys or whatever.
Hard 10.
TC, can you make a graphic of Voss as photoshopped as Steve Jobs or Gavin Belson, pitching Ravens 4.0 to TechCrunch or something like that? I like the sound of that.
Questions or mailbag?
I don't know. What I'm Googling is just what teams have won more than 3 playoff games in the last 4 years or something.
It's been I looked at it before last year, and the Ravens were bottom 3rd, and then they won one last year. So, and they got at least one bye, but division round ceiling. I don't know about you. It really depends on what you prefer. But I would prefer
that Bills game just ruins everything as well.
2019, but that's not a divisional round.
That Bills game was a nightmare with the wind. They couldn't even kick the freaking ball. Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson completed one pass that traveled over 18 yards in the air.
I think Huntley threw a deep ball that literally sailed 30 feet over Brown's head.
Yeah. that might not be
down the right sideline. I remember that one. Yeah. I personally would prefer. I would prefer
one more thick class. Sign. They have plenty of avenues to create cap space that are very within their normal business operations. Just restructures and extensions. Nothing crazy. Cutting a couple guys, cutting a Boykin, cutting a Ben Powers, whatever. If there are guys that they need, I think again, Adam Jones said in the comments, if there are 2 guys that they want, they can go get them. I don't think they're up that tight considering some of the moves they can make. Dan Rees, we really should have on this show. He does a really good job with.
Dan's awesome. That's my
he's
guy.
a great dude. Does a great job with cap work and understanding and spitting it out in the length of a tweet and making it comprehensive and able to be comprehended. But yeah, I think one more thick class. Go get a Marcus Williams. If there's someone else you can get, throw them on there too, and then trade a first or a second or a third or whatever it takes to go get a guy or two. And I think they're in good shape. Again, I just think when they eventually, I do think they're going to end up extending Lamar. Everybody's all up in arms. It was freaking quarterback extension media. The worst thing. Thank the Ravens. The Joe Flacco contract didn't work out, but thank them for just making that quick and clean, and we didn't have to hear about it.
Right.
That was nice in hindsight with how terrible this is going to be until it gets done.
Well, he also played that out a year. He bet on himself. They put an offer on the table, and he said no. So
hopefully it happens again. Worst case would be the Ravens having to hand Lamar a blank check as he wins a Super. Or best case would be Lamar.
I'll take one Super Bowl per decade.
Even if Lamar wins the Super Bowl, are they going to? How much more is he going to make them Mahomes? That's the question. I don't think that it's not unlimited. It's not. There is.
But I think it increases the years. That's the thing, which increases the flexibility. Like the Chiefs can do whatever they want because Mahomes has a contract where he can push $100 million off of it in the next 4 years.
They say whatever the hell they want.
Right. So
once they start taking 14 money line parlays in the in the first floor of M&T Bank Stadium, everybody's good. The cap's just going to continue going up
exactly.
and up and up.
They quit dragging their feet. So I agree. I think they've been drafting these thick classes for a long time. Eventually, you gotta go the other way, just for the sake of balance in anything.
Yes.
Just in life. You've had 9-10 draft pick classes how many years in a row? It's time to change it up a little bit just for the sake of fucking changing it up. And especially when you're in their organization or like the Steelers or the Packers where they have the same coach and the same GM, sometimes you got to just do the thing you haven't been doing. I don't know.
And they actually have. I mean, the Steelers traded up for Bush.
They traded for Minka.
Yeah, and they traded for Minka. Another one. The Packers ponied up for ZDS and who was the other guy they paid? They pay guys.
They paid Preston Smith. They paid
somebody else I'm forgetting, but
yeah.
They pay.
They drafted Sean Gary. They paid those two guys. I
think there's a case to be made that the Ravens have been the most conservative, or one of the 5 most conservative teams over the last since DeCosta took over.
Out of the competitive,
including Thomas, and I give him credit for that. And I think that was a great move,
man. In 20 months, he acquired 4 Pro Bowl or All Pro defensive players.
You're also talking about a team that is in the division with a team that is owned by Mike Brown. So, and listen,
they spent money though. They spent
money.
They
did. See, no, they didn't. All they did was sign Trey Hendrickson. Everyone else was cheap.
Hilton, how much did you pay Hilton?
Hilton was like $20 million.
He's one of your guys that they spend a little bit of money on and they spread it around with other guys.
They no one, and I know that. Shout out to
Riley
Garnett.
Reeve.
And you know who they did pay? Actually, they paid a nose tackle, top of market.
Yes,
money.
they did 2 years ago,
and that was a great signing. That was a great signing.
But he can rush the passer a little bit. That's the difference.
Yeah. Better than the one whose name we won't say.
Better than 98.
That's for sure. I'll agree with that for sure.
You don't got the ring.
Let's see. I mean, Von Bell's a respected player, box safety. He's getting paid, $5 million a year.
Trey Waynes, they paid him more
Trey
than he was
Waynes
worth.
didn't even play. Chidobe Awuzie was scraps and turned into a really good starting corner. They
got lucky with him. I'll give you.
I don't think they got lucky. I think they have a good coaching staff and a good front office that was like these. They've got the right sauce right now to go get guys and develop them and put them in positions to succeed. So. Luck sure is a factor in all of it, and there's always going to be that crapshoot aspect. But Hendrickson, I was like, man, no one's talking about him. He did have a big year, but I
thought that was an overpay. I thought they should have kept.
I said in the offseason that I thought I had the Bengals going 7-10 or 8-9, and everyone was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And I was like, dude, they signed some like okay guys on that. I said, I think that defense will be okay.
Good call.
And I mean, by no means did I say anything along the lines of they're going to win the AFC at all. So I'm not trying to, dunk on that or anything. But
when we found the
what did they do? They signed defense and drafted offense.
Yeah, when we found the draft video for Bateman, I heard myself saying like, yeah, they could be like right around 500. This is going to be a competitive division. So I think we were kind of in line with that. And yeah, I mean, look, that's what one offseason can do for you. So.
If Bateman turns into a stud next year and adds, again, buzzword, functional strength, and, gets fed the ball, I think so many problems overall on their entire roster are a lot of things are going to fall out in the wash if Bateman turns into a stud, which we saw some serious flashes of, very much so, and just didn't quite, get him the ball, and the offense started being a little weird.
A stud.
Good.
He's an air quotes guy.
He is he had the wide ones too. That was good. I think
like
he watched that a lot.
It's a good look. This is a good look at receiving corps. I really think so.
And people want us to touch on Hollywood. I don't know, man. Their agents run their social media. To me, I love that like 58-year-old men are trying to like make content about social media when they have no idea what's going on.
A really big text on his phone, and he's like trying to like work his way through like a scrub.
They've got the font on like jumbo on their phone, and they're trying to decipher what's going on. It's like, dude, their agents all run their social media. Instagram is for like branding yourself and stuff and announcing stuff and whatever. I don't know. They just also said, Eric DaCosta also just said out loud to the world, I think that Hollywood Brown's 5th-year option is a bargain.
Yeah, so. I think that there's another thing going around about him that we don't even have to really touch on. I think it's kind of all BS, but we'll see. I mean, who knows?
We shall see. But yeah, so I agree. I think this is a good draft class to do. The other tough part is that it takes two to tango.
There's not too many studs in this draft class. This is the top 10.
We're so far from that.
Right. So
we'll see.
Okay. All right. I mean,
condense those picks really. I think the maximum efficiency of what you should do with 10 picks and with where they're sitting is draft 8 players in the first 3 rounds.
Yes, I think so.
Let's trade up in the draft this year a little bit and do it. You can do that reasonably.
When's the last time they trade up?
Let's turn, the 98th pick into the 65th pick or something and use future picks to do that if you can. And it takes 2 to tango, but, condense all of that. If there's all these players that, went back for another year, didn't play last year, condense it into the top 100, draft 7 times in the top 100. And you'll probably have a fucking
I'm saying like the top end, because I saw Brugler put out his top 100 today, and he put Hutchinson 1, and he said Hutchinson would not have gone in the top 10 last year. So I think so usually most draft class, I think there's like from 1 to 15, and then the next tier is from like 15 to 55 or 60 or something like that. And then it goes down. And I think maybe the top 20 or so might all be pretty similar this year.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's a good year to do it. You got 1 million picks and not a ton of roster space to even really kind of waste with picking a ton of guys. So yeah, I'm all for it. Just make it happen. Look at the country's national debt. But yeah, I mean, I think we're
gonna need to clip that one.
I think
that was an all-time great quote. That was good recall by you. That Kevin James really knows his way around a press room.
He does. My parents actually watched that movie the other day.
I watched it.
Review. Was it good?
I don't know. It was secretly a Happy Madison production.
I was gonna
say Rob Schneider in it.
I was going to say Happy Madison was involved, so it had to be. It
was funny. It was like way more ridiculous than I thought it was going to be too. Like it is not trying to be serious at all. So I'd watch if I would tell you to watch it.
The best thing was the Lights Camera Barstool guys like tweeting the picture that Kevin James is unrecognizable as Sean Payton when the first screener came out, and people were like, "What the fuck are you guys talking about? Like that looks nothing like him." It's like, yeah, that's kind of the joke. Like.
He really ate a lot of gumbo to get ready for this role. He just looks just like him.
I don't blame him. But yeah, I mean, I'm all taked out. I don't know if you guys got anything.
Final take as well is like watch quarterbacks have fall offs because we're all like, oh, the AFC for the next 47 years is going to be so. Watch that like slightly not be as big of a deal as we think it is.
It's just a lot of them. Like if two of them fall off, the other two might step up.
Exactly.
I did see one good.
Guys have injuries. Guys have down years. It's not going to be 6 guys going for 5,000 yards and 40 touchdowns for the next decade.
I feel like we touched on most of this mailbag, but there was a good question from Space Ghost.
Go for it.
One guy you wish to trade for, one guy you wish to draft, one guy you wish to sign a free agency.
I saw that too. Trade for is kind of tough.
I mean, I'd like Joe Montana. I don't know. Friggin' Calvin Johnson.
You for being a Lamar hater for saying that.
Yeah, exactly.
I would say I like the idea of Matthew. I know that's kind of everyone's on that train, but you guys got me turned on to Marcus Williams here. I'd say sign him, draft whatever tackle you like best at 14. I'm not like literally not, saying anything new here. I think people have kind of talked about this a lot. And then I want to see them pick up another wide receiver. I don't know like what is going to happen with Sammy Watkins. I'd be fine bringing him back if it's on the cheap. But maybe somebody with
what I can't get out of my head is Chris Godwin.
Sure. And it's like somebody with impact potential. Like I like that idea a lot because Hollywood has impact potential in his own ways, but like he's not like scaring people.
DJ Shark.
Yeah, like that's
I secretly want Treylon Burks.
Yeah.
I secretly want a horse of a wide receiver that will AJ Brown people to death.
Complete the basketball team. Like you look at the Bengals, you got Boyd, you got Chase, and you got Higgins, and those guys all have different profiles.
Uzama and
right? And you got that kind of with
Auden
Andrew
Tate. Shout out Auden Tate wherever he is in the world.
Yeah, shout out to Ian. But yeah, no. Complete the basketball team. Go get the big wide receiver. I like the idea of that.
I can't get it out of my head. I think I'm just a little wide receiver crazy from the last couple of years because we wanted.
Yeah, I think you guys are. I wanted wide receiver worse than both of you guys, and now I'm like, yeah, we're good, we're fine. Yeah, we got Andrews.
Yeah, Jake wants the Ravens to trade for Juwan Jennings. That's Jake's boy.
Yeah, you're fucking right. I do. That guy a crush at the position, and he is a restricted free agent this year. Give up the first round pick for him.
There we go.
Draft picks on that.
Bring one back. I mean, it's tough between Bozeman and Campbell, I guess. Whatever. I guess
I think Houston. I'd like to see Houston back.
I definitely do want Houston back, but I think I'm going to go with Campbell just because I think Campbell is just like a rare body.
Yeah.
He's 6'8". He's nimble-ish.
They just have it's just like, again, they have like cluster like 6 slot receivers, 5 3-techs. It's just everybody's like the same, and then 4 or 5 strong safeties, no free safeties. That's the only thing. I mean, I'd like to see Matabike grow up a little bit. So I don't know, but I'm certainly not opposed to Campbell. But he's not man in the nose.
But that's who would you rather? So who would you rather keep? Bozeman?
I think Houston. I would rather keep Houston, kick McCarty inside, and draft either Cross or Icky, or maybe move up for Neal if you want to get a little bit crazy.
I wholeheartedly love Charles Cross. I think he's going to be the best of the 3 of them.
Yeah.
Unbelievable athlete. But
you can move down for Falele, then move back up with those picks and the other picks that you got. Like there's a lot of different permutations.
I saw Falele in the 3rd. Well, on the NFL.
Apparently, I'm telling you, he went to IMG Academy, and the director of sports performance of IMG Academy said he had like 8% higher of an explosive score on his jumps and stuff relative to weight, basically his RAS, than anyone in the history of IMG. I think he's gonna turn some heads at that combine.
He's gonna rock the combine.
He's 6'8", 390-ish.
No, yeah, he's a monster.
Blocks in space, like hunts DBs down in space. If he lasts through the 3rd round, my head will spin like the Exorcist.
And they've traded back and then
Reuter. I think Reuter, whoever put the NFL.com 3-rounder out today had him in the 3rd. Like
I could write a thesis on him. He's one of the most interesting prospects in years, but.
Yeah,
I will have a thesis on him once I've watched more of his games. I've only watched 4 of his games so far. I'm still getting through before all the reports come out. But For me, I mean, I want to re-sign Campbell. I would like to sign Marcus Williams, and I would like to draft Charles Cross. I think that's my triple threat there. And Charles Cross, I don't know. It's weird, the switching right and left side stuff is very strange, but I think he's a lot more tenacious than people give him credit for. I think he is incredibly athletic and can do anything you want him to on a football field in the trenches. And I don't think the Ravens will be able to get him at 14, but I don't know.
Apparently he's a little bit polarizing. I don't know. You never know. Yeah. Remind me what ankle of Stanley's is.
It's his right ankle, which makes it 1,000 times worse. And
right,
really,
to
play left tackle, that is way worse because that's his plant leg, where you want to be able to feel if he apparently has some nerve damage in there. You want to be able to feel everything through that and where you are. So switching
he's better
sides,
off. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Would theoretically maybe kind of almost help. Maybe
remember when Yonda switched to left guard when he messed up his shoulder a few years back.
Right, exactly. So if there's something that you can work around that way, then why not? I mean, we're purely speculating here, but he's already got the bag.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to catch feelings and ask for a trade.
Yeah, I don't think Ronnie Stanley's asking for a trade anytime soon.
Right. Yeah. So that's that. You covered the one question there. We can probably punt on the mailbag tonight. Sorry for everyone that sent in questions.
We had a lot. The last thing I'll touch on, we had a lot of Ojabo, and Ojabo is someone I would definitely be really happy to take at 14.
Yeah, me too. I mean, like if it falls a certain way, I think he would be a guy that I would love. I mean, like he's one of the guys that I have gotten around to, and he is a pleasure to watch.
He's a rare mover and has rare ability to finish, which you mentioned Matabike, Vaz. I think Matabike just he lacks the understanding of how to get the sack, how to disengage at the right time. He wants to beat his blocker as opposed to get a sack. Ojabo wants to get a sack, not beat his blocker.
Sure. Well, you paired Ojabo with Owe. I mean, you got two freaks. Certainly would
that
not
helps against mobile quarterbacks too. It's going to help against mobile quarterbacks,
and it will help Matabike. It's all working in conjunction there.
He can work slowly and use his athletic ability inside. Jermaine Johnson, another Seminole.
That's it.
I think that gets us through a lot of it. We'll get more into the draft stuff. We're still not quite there. We got free agency coming up. Did want to read before we get out of here. Read the dates. So Kyle was so kind as to send them, I think today. So we'll read them out loud for. I don't know where did he put it in
combine.
The chat?
Yeah, it's in the
March. Is it in the chat or the content one?
I think it's content.
He said March. Yeah, I've got it. It's March 1st through the 7th is the scouting combine. March 8th, 4 p.m. ET deadline for franchise or transition tag players. March 14th, 12 p.m. ET tampering period. March 16th, 2022. New league year, so free agency begins, but it really begins with the tampering, so we don't have to worry about that.
It really begins 4 days after that for the Ravens as they're sorting through the second.
March 27th through 30th, annual league meeting. And then draft about a month after that, probably. So there you go. There's the timeline. I think we're going to start the big board right after the combine. So that gives us probably about 7 weeks of
I would like to start it after the combine.
We got a combine this year. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
I missed it. It's not in Indy anymore. I think it's crazy.
Is it Dallas this year or is it LA?
I don't know.
I think Dallas.
Yeah, I think it's Dallas. Yeah, okay. I mean, that'll be fun. I like the idea of it being an indie because I just love all the idea of these dorky sports writers waddling through the bridges that connect all the buildings and going to Elmo's Fire or whatever.
Yeah, that's all.
The part that I like is more nerdy. It's that it was in the same place on the same surface, so you're going to get more consistency with time.
Well, it's also that's a much more walkable city. There's a reason it was there so that all the media and the executives could get together very easily.
And it's also a central location in the country.
Yeah, Arlington is literally the stadium is in the middle of nowhere in Arlington with the Cowboys. So that's probably not.
They don't have shrimp. Actually, well, they do because Texas golf.
They've got shrimp coming in from Galveston, which I don't know if I would touch with a 10-foot pole, but yeah, you got that going on. That's gonna change the dynamics up a little bit, but it'll still be fun.
I think that about does it. Happy birthday, Vasily.
Thanks, fellas.
Looking good. Still in those 30s, baby. You're good to go.
One more year.
Yeah, exactly. Just one more year. Cherish it. I'm
going to make the most of it. Believe me.
Yeah, well, we'll be there to help you with that. But yeah, I guess that's all we got as far as the content goes. I think it was a nice tight little hour plus here, talking all that stuff, covering your mailbag questions in our own sort of roundabout way. So sorry we didn't explicitly get to those guys, but we will probably have plenty more of those coming up. But yeah, programming notes, got a little simulcast type deal that we're going to be doing with Bobby Trossett later in the week. He's got his own stuff that he does. I think not really even affiliated with BAL and 98 Rock. I think he's got like a YouTube channel. So we're going to be like, I think doing a show, and we're just going to kind of stream it to both our platforms in a way, or maybe just like post it on both platforms. So yeah, going to be great to talk with Bobby again. He's a guy who I think we've had on once, and then we kind of talked to outside of the show quite a bit. So he's always great to chat with. So he'll be on later in the week. That's probably going to drop. I don't know if we're live streaming it Thursday night or what, but it'll be out on Friday guaranteed. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned over the next couple weeks. Where it's a little bit of a content suck, but we're going to be getting into some free agency talk probably. Maybe try to like plan some content for that, because I feel like that's something that gets a little overlooked with the draft coming up, and then of course draft coming after that. So you got all that to look forward to, and it's going to be fun.
Indeed. And with that, see ya.
Arrivederci.
Where is the wise man? Where is the scholar? Where is the philosopher of this age? Get down! Baltimore!
What are they giving? Everything out of me. They gonna get a Super Bowl out of me. Believe that. Believe that.